at the end of their lives.
One method is proving particularly controversial. It's called the Liverpool Care Pathway, where medicine, food and fluids are withdrawn from those with only hours to live.
Many families, though, claim it's being used when people are not dying, and they believe it's simply a backdoor to euthanasia. Our health correspondent Stacey Poole has this exclusive report.
100% my grandmother was not dying.
Bridget Reeves is convinced her grandmother was wrongly put onto the Liverpool Care Pathway at the Gosport War Memorial Hospital. Elsie Devine had been admitted with kidney problems.
She had displayed no symptoms of pain or terminal agitation, nothing to make or to suggest to anybody that she was in fact near the end of life.
And yet her family claims she was given large doses of morphine and antipsychotic drugs.
She was given no food or water. Obviously by that stage she was already, as we consider, in a coma. Those drugs terminated my grandmother's life, and yet we can get her no justice.
Bridget knows all the details of what happened in the run-up to her grandmother's death because there have been 3 police investigations and an inquest. But the family were not told at the time that large doses of drugs were being prescribed and that food and water were being withdrawn. But this is not an isolated story.
We weren't told that he was on the Liverpool Care Pathway.
Eric Troke was admitted to Frimley Park Hospital after suffering a stroke. He was 95 and weak, but not dying, according to his family.
He was able to talk. He was able to move the left side of his body, and he was conscious the entire time. He was verbalising.
And yet the family claim food, hydration and medication were withdrawn on medical grounds.
The fluids were removed 6 days before his death, the same day that the little bit of treatment he was receiving for the 2 infections he had was also removed. So essentially, once you've deprived somebody of food, water, and they're ill, and you take away their treatment, you basically can say, he'll die, it's just a case of when.
Well, we have contacted the hospitals where both patients were treated, but they said they couldn't comment on individual cases and couldn't confirm whether or not Eric Troke or Elsie Devine were on the pathway. But Frimley Park Hospital has said that relatives are always consulted if the pathway is introduced. The problem is, it's not a legal requirement for relatives to be told, and that's why so many are calling for change.
I think the government needs to bring in a law that states that before somebody is started on a Liverpool Care Pathway, consent must be given by the patient or by a relative, and that's it, simply.
Medics that I've spoken to agree that consent from the patient or relatives is essential because deciding when someone is dying is very difficult and mistakes can be made.
There are lots of conditions that mimic the dying process. One of the commonest and simplest is simple dehydration. And we've seen reports of the elderly in particular being denied fluids. They have a drink that's put on a table that's too far away for them to get. And they gradually become dehydrated. And then someone can say, well, they're dying.
Well, a national audit has revealed that more than a quarter of families were not told that their relatives were being put onto the pathway, highlighting there are issues in the way it's being used.
Totally unacceptable. I think it's to do with the way doctors are working now, the way nurses are working now, the shift patterns, there's lack of continuity, and it's so easy for patients to be lost in a busy hospital and relatives not to be talked to and communicated with.
A petition has now been launched which relatives are calling for everyone to sign. They feel a change in the law is the only way to protect the elderly and vulnerable and ensure the Liverpool Care Pathway is only used for those in the final hours of their life.
This could happen, and you don't have to be 95. You could be 5 and this could be happening. You know, if you're deemed to be dying, then this could happen to you without your knowledge or consent.
Well, Stacey joins us now in the studio. So, Stacey, what has the NHS said about the Liverpool Care Pathway project?
Well, this has been devised by Marie Curie nurses at a hospice in Liverpool. So we went straight to them to try and discuss the concerns raised in our report. They didn't want to be interviewed, but they said this method of care has eased the pain and suffering of hundreds of people, although they do realise there are problems. What they've stated is the Liverpool Care Pathway does say that consent should be sought from relatives and patients. So it's not the fault of the pathway, but the fault of those who are using it.
So do all hospitals use this pathway?
Not at the moment, no, but it has been approved by NICE, the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, so its use is widespread. I think the point that we're trying to make tonight is be aware and ask questions, because this pathway can have huge benefits as long as it's used on the right patients at the right time.
Stacey, thank you.
In other news, an elderly couple have died after a fire at their home in Southampton. Emergency services were called to the ground floor flat in the Lords Hill area in the early hours of this morning. The couple, a man of 87 and an 81-year-old woman, were taken to hospital, but medics were unable to save them.
It's a very small flat. It was searched by the crews in a matter of minutes. They were able to extract the casualties, bring them out into fresh air, where they were dealt with by the awaiting ambulance crews.
Saddened. Yeah, quite saddened, really. That's all. But I don't know what else could have been done at that time of night.
They're a nice couple. They just pass the time of day when they used to when they was out.
A children's hospice that lost nearly £6 million in the Icelandic bank collapse announced today it's been thrown a financial lifeline.
Yes, Naomi House in Hampshire has been given a one-off payment to make up for the money it won't be able to get back through administrators.
The grant from Health Bosses means the hospice is now back on track and planning to press ahead with ambitious plans for the future. Christine Alsford reports.
There was a collective sigh of relief today from all those for whom Naomi House provides a valuable lifeline. Families like the Bakers. 3 of their 12 children have a condition that affects the muscles and need round-the-clock care and support.
It's a great relief, really, to know that our respite won't be affected, and the thought of us not being able to come was really worrying. It's the only break we get throughout the whole year, and it's brilliant. We can come and chill, relax. The children get really well looked after, so it's great news.
Naomi House has £5.7 million frozen in a collapsed Icelandic bank, but ultimately hopes to get 3/4 of that back via administrators. Today they revealed that after more than a year of campaigning, the hospice at Sutton Scotney will receive a special payment from Hampshire Primary Care Trust to make up the rest.
I think everybody saw that we were a worthy cause, should get the money back, except the government. They were a very, very tough nut to crack, but ultimately we did crack them, and we are now back to where we were 18 months ago, which is a tremendous triumph for us.
In recent months, Naomi House has had to dig deep into its reserves to continue work on Jack's Place, a brand new special unit that's being built for 16 to 25-year-olds. Catherine Trussell is currently on her first visit, impressed with the decor and the facilities. Is it like a holiday being here?
Yeah.
The charity should receive its money in the next couple of weeks, but they say they're still facing the ongoing challenge of raising nearly £5 million a year to keep valuable services running. Christine Alsford for Meridian Tonight.